You don't need more time. What you truly need is more intention. Too often, people convince themselves that they lack the hours in a day to make real progress. They believe they need to clear their schedules, buy a complete language program, or wait until life slows down. But life rarely slows down. The truth is, improvement doesn't come from having endless time. It comes from deciding that every minute counts. It begins the moment you decide that 15 minutes is enough to create change if you use it with purpose. Think about what happens when you approach something with clear intention. Suddenly, even small moments carry meaning. The few minutes you spend reading an English article or listening to a short podcast aren't just filler time. They become acts of deliberate growth. Intention transforms ordinary moments into opportunities. It shifts your focus from I should to I am. The difference between those two words is the difference between dreaming and doing. When you give your learning a clear purpose, you turn every effort into progress. You start noticing patterns, remembering words more easily, and finding joy in small victories. The same sentence that once felt impossible to say becomes natural after a few days of consistent practice. That's the power of intentional repetition. It trains both your mind and your confidence. 15 minutes might not sound like much, but it holds more potential than hours spent without focus. You can spend a whole day thinking about studying English and learn nothing. But 15 minutes of focused attention, repeated day after day, builds something lasting. It builds a rhythm, a habit of progress that starts to feel effortless over time. It's not about how long you practice. It's about how often you show up. When you approach those 15 minutes with clear purpose, you teach your brain to expect learning. Over time, your daily practice becomes a natural part of your routine, like brushing your teeth or having your morning coffee. That's when transformation happens, not in one grand moment, but through hundreds of small, intentional choices. Intentional learning also means knowing why you're doing it. You're not just studying words and grammar. You're investing in communication, connection, and confidence. You're building a bridge between where you are and where you want to be. When your reason is clear, your intention becomes stronger. You stop seeing English as a subject and start seeing it as a skill that can open doors to new experiences, relationships, and opportunities. Intention keeps you moving forward when motivation fades. Motivation is exciting but fleeting. Intention is steady and powerful. When you have a clear purpose, when you know why you're dedicating those 15 minutes, you no longer depend on feeling inspired. You do it because it matters, because you've decided your growth is worth it. That mindset is what turns effort into transformation. Even on the days when you're tired or distracted, intention guides you. You might not study perfectly every time, but you'll still show up. You'll still give yourself those few minutes because you understand the value behind them. And that's how consistency is built, not through perfection, but through persistence driven by purpose. When you live with intention, your 15 minutes become more than a habit. They become a promise to yourself, a promise to learn, to grow, to become a little better than yesterday. Every single day you honor that promise, you strengthen your discipline, your confidence, and your belief in what's possible. That's why intention is more powerful than time. Because while time passes whether you act or not, intention gives that time meaning. It's what transforms ordinary moments into extraordinary progress. And it's what turns 15 simple minutes into a lifetime of improvement. Just 15 minutes a day can transform the way you learn and the results you see. People often underestimate what can be achieved in a small amount of time. They imagine progress as something that requires long study sessions, endless vocabulary lists, and complex grammar drills. But the truth is, it's the small, steady steps that move you forward. 15 minutes of focused effort every day can achieve more than hours of unfocused study done once in a while. It's not about how much you do in one day. It's about what you do consistently over many days. Think about how our minds work. The brain loves repetition. It learns best in short, regular bursts of attention rather than long, exhausting sessions. When you dedicate just 15 minutes a day to improving your English, you're giving your brain exactly what it needs to remember and retain new information. You're creating a rhythm of learning that keeps your mind active and engaged without overwhelming it. Each day, your brain connects new ideas to what you learned before, and slowly the knowledge becomes natural and effortless. Small commitments also remove excuses. When you tell yourself you'll study for hours, you might delay because it feels like too much. But 15 minutes, that feels manageable. It's something you can fit into your lunch break, your commute, or even the quiet moments before bed. It's not about finding time, it's about using the time you already have. Once you realize that 15 minutes is enough to make progress, you stop waiting for perfect conditions and start creating real change. Those small moments of effort build powerful habits. Every time you take those 15 minutes seriously, you strengthen your discipline. You begin to associate learning with progress, not pressure. Soon it becomes part of your daily life, something you do automatically. And once a habit forms, it no longer feels like effort. It feels like a natural part of who you are. That's the magic of small, consistent actions. They don't just change your routine, they change your identity. Over time, those minutes add up to hours, those hours to days, and those days to genuine improvement. You'll notice yourself understanding more when you listen, speaking with more confidence, and thinking in English instead of translating every word. Each 15-minute session plants a seed, and with daily care, those seeds grow into fluency. It's a quiet transformation that happens so gradually you might not notice it, until one day you realize how far you've come. Small commitments also teach patience. In a world that constantly demands instant results, spending just 15 minutes a day on improvement reminds you that real growth takes time. It's not about rushing. It's about building something solid, something that lasts. You start valuing consistency over perfection, and you learn to trust the process instead of judging yourself too early. Every minute becomes a step forward, no matter how small. By keeping your goals small and achievable, you remove the fear of failure. There's no pressure to master everything at once. You simply focus on one short session, one small goal, one tiny win, and each small win builds momentum. That momentum becomes motivation, and that motivation fuels even more progress. It's a beautiful cycle that starts with something as simple as 15 minutes. You also begin to see how much can be accomplished in a short time when you truly focus. 15 minutes of full attention, without distractions, can be incredibly productive. You can learn new words, listen to a short dialogue, write a few sentences, or review a grammar point. The key is not the amount of time, but the quality of attention you bring to it. Focus turns minutes into mastery. The more you commit to this daily practice, the more confidence you build in yourself. Each day that you follow through on your promise to spend 15 minutes learning, you prove that you are capable of discipline, growth, and follow through. That feeling of accomplishment carries over into other areas of your life. It strengthens your belief that big changes start with small actions, and that consistency is the foundation of success. 15 minutes a day might sound simple, even too simple, but that's its power. It removes the complexity and excuses that hold you back and replaces them with a clear, achievable path forward. Every small commitment done consistently compounds into something far greater than you imagine. You don't need to study for hours to make real progress. What truly matters is showing up every single day, even for a short time, and giving your full attention to the process. Consistency creates momentum, and momentum is what keeps growth alive. When you make a habit of spending time with English daily, your brain stays connected to the language. You don't have to restart every time you study because you're always building on what you did yesterday. That rhythm, that constant engagement, is far more powerful than long, irregular bursts of effort. When you commit to short, daily practice, you train your mind to stay alert and responsive. You stop seeing learning as a huge, tiring task and start seeing it as part of your daily rhythm. You wake up, you eat, you move through your day, and somewhere in that flow, English becomes a natural part of it. This kind of regular exposure builds familiarity, and familiarity breeds confidence. Over time, the language begins to feel less foreign and more like a natural extension of your thinking. Consistency also removes the mental weight of starting over. If you study for hours once a week, every session feels like climbing a hill. You forget details, lose track of what you learned, and waste time trying to catch up. But when you show up daily, even for 15 minutes, you stay close to the language. You remember where you left off, you feel the progress, and your learning becomes smoother. You don't have to fight resistance every time you begin because the habit itself carries you forward. Another powerful thing about daily practice is that it trains discipline, not just knowledge. Every day you choose to study even when you don't feel like it. You strengthen your commitment to your own growth. You prove to yourself that progress isn't about how you feel in the moment. It's about following through on what you said you'd do. That daily decision becomes a quiet but powerful act of self-respect, a reminder that you are investing in your own potential. When you practice consistently, you also give yourself the gift of compounding progress. Each day's effort adds a small layer to what you already know, and those layers begin to stack. At first, the change is subtle. You might not notice it right away, but after a few weeks, you begin to see it. You understand more, you speak more clearly, you read more confidently. What once felt impossible becomes achievable because consistency transforms small steps into meaningful strides. This steady effort builds trust between you and the process. You start believing that results will come, not because of a lucky break or sudden inspiration, but because of your own persistence. The simple act of showing up daily becomes proof that growth is in your control. You learn to rely less on motivation and more on commitment. Motivation might fade after a few days, but consistency, the decision to keep going no matter what, stays. Consistency also helps you form a deeper relationship with the language itself. You stop memorizing words just to remember them and start understanding how they connect, how they sound, how they feel in real communication. Daily exposure allows your brain to absorb patterns naturally. It becomes less about studying English and more about living it through reading, listening, speaking, and writing in small, meaningful moments every day. When you show up regularly, you start to notice the little victories that often go unseen. You catch yourself understanding a phrase you once ignored. You find yourself thinking of a word without translating it. You respond faster in a conversation. These small signs of progress keep you motivated and remind you that growth is happening even when it doesn't feel dramatic. Every day adds a piece to the bigger picture, and every piece matters. There's also a psychological power in consistency. It keeps your confidence alive. When you stop and start too often, you begin to doubt your ability to learn. But when you stay consistent, you build trust in yourself. You realize that you don't need to be perfect, you just need to be present. That mindset doesn't just help you in language learning, it strengthens how you approach challenges in every area of life. Over time, daily practice becomes part of your identity. You no longer think of yourself as someone trying to learn English. You begin to see yourself as an English learner, someone who grows a little every day. That shift changes everything. It makes learning less of an obligation and more of a lifestyle, something that feels natural and empowering. Consistency doesn't just help you learn, it helps you become. Confidence doesn't come from knowing everything. It comes from taking action, from showing up even when you're unsure, and from seeing the gradual evidence of your own improvement. Many people believe that confidence is something you earn only after you've mastered a skill, but in reality, it's something you build through consistent effort. Every time you practice English, even if you make mistakes, you're proving to yourself that you're capable of trying. And that courage to try is where confidence begins. When you focus on small, consistent progress, you create a foundation of trust within yourself. You begin to see that you can rely on your own discipline and effort. It's not about being fluent right away. It's about recognizing that each word you learn, each sentence you speak, is a step toward something greater. Confidence grows from that steady awareness that you are improving no matter how slowly. Every session you complete, every moment you push through hesitation, strengthens that belief. Making promises to yourself and keeping them is one of the most powerful ways to build self-confidence. When you say you'll spend 15 minutes a day learning and you actually follow through, you send yourself a message that your word matters. You prove that you can depend on your own commitment. Over time, this builds a quiet strength that no external validation can replace. You stop needing others to tell you you're improving because you can feel it in your own consistency. Confidence also grows when you shift your focus from perfection to progress. Too often, people hold back from speaking or writing in English because they fear making mistakes. But mistakes are proof that you're trying, that you're stretching your comfort zone. Each error you make becomes a lesson that refines your understanding. When you embrace those mistakes as part of the process, fear loses its power and confidence takes its place. The more you practice, the more natural it feels to express yourself. That's when real confidence begins to shine, not because you know every rule, but because you've trained your mind to handle uncertainty. You stop overthinking and start communicating. You realize that language isn't about being flawless, it's about connection. When your focus shifts from being perfect to being understood, your confidence grows effortlessly. Confidence is not built overnight. It's the result of many small victories that accumulate over time. Maybe it's understanding a conversation without translating, or speaking a full sentence without hesitation. These moments might seem small, but they represent real growth. Each success, no matter how minor, adds another layer of assurance. You begin to trust your ability to learn, to adapt, to express. As your confidence grows, your mindset changes too. You stop seeing challenges as obstacles and start seeing them as opportunities to improve. When you approach learning with curiosity instead of fear, every mistake becomes feedback rather than failure. This shift in perspective transforms your entire experience. You no longer avoid speaking out of fear, you engage because you know every attempt moves you forward. Confidence also builds through repetition. The more often you expose yourself to the language, listening, reading, speaking, the more familiar it becomes. Familiarity replaces anxiety with ease. You start to notice patterns, phrases, and expressions that once felt confusing now feel intuitive. This comfort breeds confidence, and it grows stronger each time you practice. When you start believing in your own progress, everything else becomes easier. You stop comparing yourself to others and start focusing on your journey. You understand that confidence doesn't come from being better than someone else. It comes from being better than you were yesterday. That self-awareness empowers you to keep going, to push through moments of doubt, and to celebrate how far you've come. True confidence is quiet. It's not loud or boastful. It's steady, calm, and unshakable. It's knowing that you don't need to be perfect to make progress. It's the understanding that each day you dedicate to learning, you're building something valuable within yourself. Confidence is not something you wait for. It's something you create one small act of courage at a time. Every small action you take in learning English matters more than you might realize. One podcast, one paragraph, one conversation. These may seem insignificant in the moment, but they are the building blocks of mastery. Progress doesn't happen in sudden leaps. It happens through countless small efforts that accumulate over time. Each step you take, no matter how minor it feels, brings you closer to fluency. The small things you do consistently shape the foundation of your confidence and skill. When you listen to a short podcast or a video in English, even for a few minutes, you're training your ear to catch rhythm, tone, and pronunciation. The more you listen, the more familiar the sounds become. Without realizing it, your brain starts to recognize words faster and anticipate meaning before you consciously translate. That's how natural comprehension develops, not through forced memorization, but through repeated exposure to authentic language in small, consistent doses. Reading even a short article or a single page in English can also have a powerful effect. Every paragraph introduces new vocabulary, sentence structures, and ideas. Over time, you start noticing patterns in how words connect and how sentences flow. These little moments of discovery deepen your understanding far more effectively than long, infrequent study sessions. Each small reading session trains your mind to think in English rather than constantly translating back and forth. Speaking just one sentence out loud each day might feel simple, but it carries enormous power. Speaking activates your memory, coordination, and confidence. It's one thing to know a word, it's another to use it. Each time you say something aloud, you're strengthening the connection between thought and expression. Over time, hesitation fades and speaking becomes more natural. Even practicing alone helps your brain adapt to producing the language instead of just receiving it. Writing a few sentences a day also creates momentum. It doesn't matter if it's a journal entry, a social media post, or a simple note. Writing forces you to organize your thoughts and find the right words to express them. It gives you space to slow down and reflect, which helps your brain process new grammar and vocabulary. Each sentence you write adds structure to your understanding, helping you move from passive learning to active mastery. Every small action also builds consistency. The more you integrate English into your daily routine, the less effort it takes to maintain it. When you make these little practices a part of your life, English stops feeling like a separate task. It becomes something that naturally fits into your day. Listening while you cook, reading while you commute, speaking to yourself in the mirror. All these moments blend into a lifestyle of learning. These small efforts also create emotional progress. Each time you notice improvement, even a tiny one, your confidence grows. You realize that your efforts matter, that you're capable of progress, and that learning isn't about perfection. It's about persistence. Those moments of recognition keep you motivated and remind you why you started. You begin to associate English with growth and possibility instead of frustration or fear. The magic of small actions lies in their cumulative effect. One step alone might not change much, but together they build unstoppable momentum. Just like drops of water carve stone over time, your consistent small efforts carve fluency into your mind. You might not see it every day, but the process is happening beneath the surface, building strength, memory, and confidence with every repetition. By focusing on these small, daily actions, you also free yourself from the pressure of perfection. You don't need to master everything at once. You just need to keep moving forward, one sentence, one word, 1 minute at a time. Each action builds upon the last, and before you know it, you look back and realize how far you've come. It's not about how much you do, it's about doing something every day that keeps you connected to your goal. Each podcast you listen to, each paragraph you read, each sentence you speak or write is a brick in the wall of your progress. Over time, those bricks form something strong, something lasting. Every small action matters because together they create transformation. They remind you that success in learning English isn't built in a single moment. It's built in every moment you choose to act. Waiting for the perfect time to start learning is one of the biggest traps that hold people back. The truth is, there will never be a perfect moment. Life will always be busy, and there will always be something that feels more urgent. If you wait until your schedule clears up, or until you feel completely ready, you might end up waiting forever. The best time to begin is not someday, it's today. Action creates readiness. Once you start, everything else begins to align around that decision. When you take the first step, even a small one, you start breaking the barrier of hesitation. The act of starting builds its own kind of energy. You no longer think of learning as an impossible goal far in the distance. It becomes something you are already doing. That change in mindset is powerful. Starting today doesn't mean you have to do everything at once. It simply means you've decided that progress matters more than perfection. Too often, people overthink the process of learning. They tell themselves they need the perfect book, the perfect teacher, or the perfect environment before they can begin. But real growth rarely depends on perfect conditions. It depends on consistency, curiosity, and courage. The first few steps are always uncertain, but uncertainty is part of learning. Every new beginning feels uncomfortable, and that discomfort is a sign that you're growing. Starting now also helps you build momentum. Momentum is what turns a single step into continuous movement. Once you begin, you're far more likely to keep going, even on days when motivation fades. The hardest part of any journey is the beginning, the moment before action. But once you've started, you've already defeated the biggest obstacle, hesitation. Each day after that becomes easier because progress starts to feed itself. When you stop waiting for motivation and take action, instead, you begin to understand a deeper truth. Motivation doesn't come before action, it comes from action. The more you engage with English, the more inspired you feel to continue. Learning starts to feel rewarding because you see and feel the progress you're making. The satisfaction of taking small steps creates the drive to take bigger ones. You build energy by doing, not by waiting to feel ready. There's a certain power in beginning before you feel prepared. It teaches resilience and adaptability. You learn to adjust as you go, to find solutions along the way, rather than waiting for everything to be clear before moving forward. Each mistake becomes part of the learning process, not a reason to stop. Starting imperfectly allows you to learn faster because you're collecting real experience, not waiting for theoretical understanding. When you start now, you also take control of your own timeline. You stop comparing your journey to others because you realize that every person learns at a different pace. The important thing is not how fast you go, but that you're moving. Every minute spent learning is an investment in your future self. The small decision you make today to start is what separates dreamers from doers. Beginning today builds confidence because it proves to yourself that you can take initiative. You're no longer stuck in the mindset of someday. You've chosen to act, and that choice changes everything. Even if you only practice for 15 minutes, you've turned intention into reality. That sense of achievement becomes the foundation for greater discipline. It's not about how perfectly you start. It's about proving to yourself that you can. There's also a quiet strength in not waiting for external permission. You don't need someone to tell you when the right time is. You decide it. The moment you start, you reclaim control over your growth. Every small effort becomes a declaration that your goals matter, that your voice matters, and that you're capable of creating change. The more you act, the more that sense of ownership deepens, and learning becomes something you do out of purpose, not pressure. Each day you choose to begin, you push the boundaries of what you once thought possible. You realize that the perfect time isn't in the future. It's hidden inside every moment you decide to use. Starting now turns possibilities into progress and transforms hesitation into momentum. The difference between where you are and where you want to be begins the moment you stop waiting and simply begin.